Yeshiva Shem and Aver. I'm Rabbi David Katz, and you are here for the Psalms in-depth series. And I would like to gradually move off of this word Psalms and call it the Tehillim in-depth series. I don't know what Psalms are. But I know what Tehillim is. Tehillim are, how you say it, but this is the in-depth Tehillim series. This is class number 4, and coincidentally enough, we are on verse number 4. I don't know if we're always going to be on class versus verse, because last week we did 2 verses, so stay tuned. Questions, comments, or feedback, I can be reached at Rabbi Katz at virtualyeshiva.com. And the way we have the order of operations is we will read the English, go into the commentary called Shai Lamora, which is a compilation of different commentaries. A nice flow. It's not the actual, I'll say this every time, I guess. It's not the actual Shai Lamora commentary. It is named that after the famous commentary. This is actually the name of the publishing house that put out the book. But it's their style, their format, and they're doing a wonderful job. And then we'll go into the explanations. How about that? And let's start with the English. Psalm 72 is what we'll be on for the next couple weeks, maybe even months. And verse 4. May he judge the poor of the nation. May he save the children of the destitute. And may he crush the oppressor. Okay, that's the verse. Let's get caught up. I think we'll do this every class. We'll go ahead and very quickly just state the objective of the previous verses. Verse 1. King David telling King Solomon through what's going to happen in the future. I expect you to do the following. Judge with righteousness. Verse 2. Verse 3. To spread peace in the world. And that peace spread through the world will be through judging righteously. Okay. Now, into the commentary of Shai Lamora, we know what concepts that we're dealing with. To judge the poor nation or people, you should judge also the matter of the poor when it comes between poor person to poor person of a small amount. It should be something important in your eyes to judge the matter of even what's called a pruta. It's like a penny, like the matter of $100. Salvation to the even more destitute. That the Evion, which is really destitute, that they don't even have what to eat, give to them sustenance and livelihood. They are more Evion, poor than the Oni, standard poor. That the Evion doesn't have anything and he desires everything. Crush the oppressor. You will crush all who come to oppress. And the oppressor takes the money of his friend from fraud and temptation, tempts him in secret. Solomon, with his massive wisdom, will recognize the oppressor. Okay. Rule number 1. King David likes to take, let's say, literal, physical elements as a method of description of spiritual matters of mazal. For example, regardless of what happened at the splitting of the sea, of the Exodus, in the physical world, King David explains in his Psalms, to Tehillim, what the mazal was in the spiritual sense. For example, where King David will say that the name of God, Elohim, which we'll mention 1,000,000 times in this series, that when the judgment of that name comes upon him, David will describe how it is to feel like he's drowning. We know that in that particular verse, he was not actually drowning. But he says, quite literally, I am drowning. And we know to take it to the mazal of the matter of what is the reality and spirituality that he's trying to convey in physical terms. Anybody that's following the Parsha classes is well aware that from the book of Exodus onward, the whole book of Exodus, because we have not finished it yet. This week we're on our last Parsha. There's something going around called the Ger Code. I really don't like using the word code, but it just, if the shoe fits, that's what it is. And it turns out, thank God, it's not my own idea. I'd say it started out as my own. The word in Yiddish is chap. Right? I understood it just from the definite nature. The word am, translated into English as the people. It's very clear to me in the Parsha that the am, or the people, are the Gerim. And Moses and God has dialogue between the children of Israel, Judaism proper, Jewish people proper, and the people, which were the Gerim that were going around in the desert with Israel. It's very prominent. When you start from the book of Exodus and go all the way through, you'll see what I was saying is 80 to 90% accuracy to be safe. I think now we can officially say that it's 100% accurate. The Am, the people, are the Gerim. And as I said, it's not my own idea technically, because 400 years ago in Sfat, somebody else made the same conclusion. And that was the Arizal. The Arizal brings it down in his Torah, the same idea, that the nation or the people were the Gerim. So that sounds like a pretty established thing. Where I got my confidence in this is none other than King David, aside from the Arizal. King David is, let's say, the code master. Right? All of the anomalies that come in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, a lot of them King David elaborates the different usage of words. Let's say, what does Brit mean? What does Am mean? What does Goy mean? What does Ummah mean? All the different words for nations and people and covenants. Just a lot of words. The word ger, we all know the word ger. There's another vowel usage that with the same letters, gimel and resh, can mean fear or trembling. So anybody who likes to call themselves God-fearers are technically, by King David's usage of Lashon HaKodesh, the Holy Tongue, Gerim. He really comes along and clarifies the language that we don't understand. The name of God, Elohim, salvation, Yeshua. Like as we said in our verse now, Evion, the destitute, and the Ani, the poor. So when we see these words in the Torah, we'll say, yeah, the Evion, and the Ani, the poor guy, and the name of God, Elohim, and blah, 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 blah. And we really don't take notice of what we're saying. And it's really a tragedy. I mean, when you read through the Torah that fast, and you don't make distinction of all the different words, do you really know what you're reading? When by Abraham in the covenant of the parts, as God says, I consider it as for you as tzedakah. What does it mean? Righteousness, charity. Shem on the boat, on the ark, said the one thing he learned was tzedakah. So you can boil the entire Torah of Shem down to one word, tzedakah. Abraham says it, and we just say righteousness. There's really no excuse for learning this way. I know it's hard in the Hebrew, and people have time constraints and whatever issues. One thing is learning it wrong. Another thing is justifying it. When people make light of word distinction, I would venture off to say, if it's not 100% of understanding one's learning, it's pretty high up there. And that is really the beauty of King David's Tehillim. We all don't have the luxury and ability to, let's say, look up every word. But if we want to gain an appreciation of Hebrew, not in the grandiose nature of word usage, but properly using the words, with intention. And David, when he says goy, he means goy. When he says am, he means am. When he says ani, he means ani. When he says yudke vavke, he means yudke vavke. When he means Elokim, he means Elokim. I think that's why we say that the Tehillim, the 5 books of Tehillim, really are the logical continuation of the 5 books of Moses. I mean, it's just fantastic what he does. And the good news is anybody can do this. Not write like him, but learn his works. He's one of a kind. I don't think I have any special skill here in looking up these words other than sitting down, opening it up with the commentary, and looking up the words that he uses. And I think any basic dictionary can yield to you the insight that King David has to give to the world. That's the beauty of Tehillim. It really sounds like advanced learning. In one respect it is. But at the same time, it's available for anybody. It really, truly is. So the code is here. I really, I don't like using that word, but if anybody can think of a better word than code, let me know. Maybe in 2014, that's the word you should use for people's attention, but it sounds like cheapening a great thing. I think most good things are that way. I mean, like when you do everyone knows I do Sol Mazal names, and that comes from the Zohar. I mean, is there anything that sounds worse than a name read? I mean, I just don't know what to call these things. These are the things that the Zohar got into, King David got into, whatever you call them. That's beyond me. I would love to know the word, because the concepts coming down with these kind of things are really amazing. I think the word we're using now is awesome. They truly are awesome. Okay, and the bottom line of this verse, when it's all said and done, which is, I guess, the title of this class today, how to recognize the oppressor, that in a sense that it will bring about the redemption of the ger. All predicated around the ger code. Ger code meaning the words used are here to show the ger. And King Solomon is going to become the king. And King David tells King Solomon through this psalm, you need to take mind and heart and matters and care with the gerim. The gerim are the essence of your kingdom. And we're going to say the whole redemption revolves around the gerim. So the first issue we have to take up, and I'm sure you're wondering why are the gerim called the poor, destitute of Israel? And there's very good reason why that is. And this is not necessarily a monetary issue as we would know it today. The first answer is a nice answer, and I believe that this is on its way to being halacha. Let's look at the ger toshav and the ger tzedek. And these are the Evyon and the Ani of Israel. the poor, and the destitute. Okay, look at any cultural system. All right, I'm an American from Dayton, Ohio. If I were to pack my bags and move to the middle of Africa, right? Culturally, it's a clash, right? And if you're not 100% in with let's say that culture, you're going to be on the outs. No matter what you do, no matter how friendly you are, nice you are, whatever, however much money you have, which is totally in face of the idea of being poor. There are going to be those that are saying, why is he here? What does he want from us? Is he safe? Is he good to have around? We don't know this guy. All of a sudden, he parks camp in the middle of Africa. He's an Orthodox Jew. There's no Jews for miles here. What does he want? So that thinking, it's not racist or bigotry. It's practical, right? And I think any society, the new kid comes in school, you want to know, who's this new kid? And if you see the new kid talking to somebody that makes you nervous, you're not so quick to rub elbows with the new guy. Such is the nature of the ger. The Jewish people have been living, let's say, in seclusion or in their shtetls, whatever it is, Jewish communities. And again, like any cultural phenomenon, it's not so easy to break your way in. If you're persistent, obviously, it can be done. So let's take a convert. A guy converted, and he's really not a good convert. All right, because if he's a good convert, we're not going to even have the idea to call him the destitute or the poor. He is a Jew, he's treated like a Jew, and he's one of the boys, he's in the gang, he eats gefilte fish on Shabbos. So why is the gefilte fish eater different than this guy? This guy is a self-hating Jew. He doesn't like Jewish people, but he insists on being called Jewish. I actually know some people like this. It's not a matter of being good Jew, bad Jew, good convert, bad convert. This is just a bad guy. And sometimes there are just bad people. It's just the way it is. So the Jews don't feel comfortable. Let's say he converted and he's wearing a cross. Right? He says he's Jewish, but he's wearing a cross, being provocative. Right? Again, I know people like this. And it's about being provocative. So this is a full-fledged convert ger tzedek. All right, he is not particularly welcome because he has burned his bridges. So he's a ger tzedek. We're not trusting him. He eats treif. He breaks Shabbos. But he insists on living by the Jewish people. All right, that guy is going to be the ani. He is the poor of Israel. Right? He has made his bed that way. And then you have another guy. He comes from America to live around the Jewish people. And he is, living on the Holy Land. That was the ger tzedek before. Now's the ger toshav. He's on the land. He's going to show everyone how great he is. All the Jews have it wrong. He knows better. He keeps his 7 only, not interested in anything more. He has a religion about it, and, if you even mention Shabbos, he'll tell you 20,000 reasons why the rabbis made it up, and the rabbis are the problem, blah, 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 blah. He is the Evion of Israel. All right, he's on the land, he's not an idolater, we have a mitzvah to help him, and he has made every enemy possible. All right, do you guys understand this setup so far? The ger tzedek convert who's not welcome. The ger toshav ger on the land that's not welcome. And again, this is their own doing. These are just bad people, just like everybody in the world knows some bad people. Now, on the flip side, okay, now there's another guy who came from America. He is loving the Torah. He is just ecstatic. He left the church. He found God. He is loving Noahide. He has a shirt that says, "I love being a Noahide." He is everyone's friend. He's helping out. He's just smiles across the board. All right, he's a Ger Toshav, and he's living in Israel, and he is the Evion, the destitute of Israel. He just doesn't know anything. All right, he is extremely happy. We love this guy, but it's like he says things he says things very not Jewish. So the Jews don't know what Noahides are. That's their fault. And, he doesn't sound right, and they think maybe he's a missionary. He's going to bring people to Christianity. But the people that he's associated with, they know what's going on. But nobody understands what's this Noahide, and why does he say everything wrong, and he looks whatever. Okay, so he is the destitute by people just don't know this guy yet. And the Ger Tzedek, not Jew, right now taking the next step. Another guy comes, he went through his Ger Toshav, and he is really into Jews. Right? He goes to the synagogue Saturday morning, puts on his yarmulke, he eats the sunflower seeds and dates, and they say, he talks to people, and they're amazed. Wow, you're not even Jewish, and you know more than we do. And it's really good. He has a Jewish community, but a lot of people still don't trust him. That is the bigotry. That is the small-mindedness. We just, why doesn't he convert? If he would just convert, it would make it a lot easier. I don't know if he should be a part of the minyan. I know we don't count him, but he makes me nervous. Okay, so he is the ani, right? Because just too many people are too uneducated, and he also doesn't say things, let's say, with the accent, so it makes people nervous. That's just reality. People are ignorant, people are uneducated, and this is society as we know it. I guess the ultimate tikkun, rectification, is either all the Jews get their act together and start teaching the Gerim, which hopefully, God willing, that's going to happen, or Ger person here, this guy, he needs to really sharpen up and show Jews what it's all about. So the guy that does that, he's articulate, he can explain, he can discuss, he's sharp. He's really the essence of Ger Tzedek. So that would be removed from the Evion and the Ani levels of the Ger. Okay, so aside from the Jewish convert and the 7 go to heaven guy, we have our 2 cases of Ger Toshav and Ger Tzedek. All right, let's say they're the ones that we are really behind wholeheartedly. There's just, by circumstance, are they considered the poor. And the other guys, the bad convert and the Ger Toshav 7 go to heaven, he is under our wings. We're dealing with him. He has a bad attitude. It's like Rabbi Akiva. He came from Gerim, and he said if people told him Torah, he would bite them like a donkey to break their bones. So you see, it's not easy when people have an ideology and it goes against, let's say, the bettering of mankind. Yet King David says to King Solomon, I don't care. You have a responsibility. If they're arguing over a penny, then you need to treat that penny like $1 million. Right? I don't care if this guy tells you you're rabbi, you're evil, you're the problem of the world, you Jews are all alike, the Gerim are wrong for keeping Shabbos, whatever's being said, the Ger Toshav, good guy who just doesn't know anything and says kind of off-the-wall things because he just doesn't know any better, the Ger Tzedek, non-Jew, who tries making peace and he says things wrong, not maliciously, but just kind of trying to make peace. All the things that can go wrong that caused tension between Jews and non-Jews. King Solomon is expected by King David, rise above that, and you have inherited 7 billion potential gerim in the world, meaning the world exists under God. It's your job to make a Kiddush Hashem, sanctify the world, bring the truth to the world, treat everyone like a mensch, give dignity and identity to the world, and bring peace. Don't say, well, this guy, he's a little funny, and that guy's a little rough, and this guy dropped out. None of your business. None of your business. You are to be tzedek and mishpat. Right? Justice in righteousness. Okay, you guys with me so far? And as I always like to say, I quote a comedian, right? It's not the photographer's fault. Bigfoot is just blurry. And that's a famous joke going around. So it's you can never pinpoint, what is a ger. A ger is this, or a ger is that. The ger is like Bigfoot. He's just blurry. Meaning there's always at least two. If you can say ger tzedek, well, that's a convert or a non-Jew. Ger toshav. Maybe it's a ger tzedek who's not Jewish, or is it a 7 go to heaven? There's always more than one circumstance with the ger. So don't get locked into any one definition. You need to be really blurry, really loose, and view the whole world, basically. It's really the concept of universal. Now, we have to judge a penny like $1 million. Now, where does that come from? This is really a huge idea. The end of the Talmudic tractate Bava Kama, which on 38a explains the essence of the ger, like the root. And the idea is, I know a lot of people have heard, a Jew can steal from a goy, right? I'm sure we've all seen these things on the internet, the Jewish conspiracy theories, right? To speak in a derogatory sense, the goy damages the Jew doesn't have to pay because the Jew can steal from the goy, right? Wrong, not true. What it is in reference to is that in the land of Israel, when there were idolatrous nations of the Canaanites, what are the 7 nations we have to exile from the land due to their idolatry? If they are idolaters and they don't take on the 7 laws, then we're exempt from paying them, not because of thievery, because it's a motivation. If you're going to live here, then you have to become a ger toshav so that there's one common monetary system and judicial system. That if you take on the Noahide laws, what you're doing is you're basically agreeing that your currency is routed through Sinai, and it becomes a valid currency in damages and charity, whatever monetary needs there are. So if you're in Pittsburgh, and for some reason your cow gores my cow, right? I don't know how that happened, but make it happen in your imagination. And you'll say, how am I supposed to pay dollars to shekels? And the answer is, well, you can be a ger toshav anywhere in the world, not just in Israel. And if you are a ger toshav, then you have the ability to pay the money. And I can pay you, you can pay me, whatever the situation is. At Sinai came down the potential for the world to be ger toshav. So it's Israel's objective to realize that potential. And should there be Jewish, non-Jewish interaction throughout the world, we would look for there to be based in the court of law with a common Torah, one Torah for everybody. So that's the idea of the Torah's monetary system is really routed twofold at Sinai and through the ger toshav. Worldwide. And all the more so in the land of Israel. Now that's just monetary. And that's also Bava Kama. At the end of Bava Kama, there's a mentioning about a place called Masa Mexia. And it was where the big yeshiva was, where the Talmud Bavli The Babylonian Talmud was redacted. And there were Gerim there, and there was a big question what to do with the Gerim. There was a lot of Jewish Ger marriages that ruined a lot of lineages, because for there to be, by the Torah law, a Ger Jewish marriage, it can only be with the Ger Tzedek. So anything short of that, i.e. a lustful relationship, brings out the wayward children. Sorah Morah. Horrible, horrible. So it either grants you like a great holiness or the world's greatest impurity. Which is why we stopped doing those unions because of that incident. And the idea was that the Gerim were not giving tzedakah, with the idea that tzedakah makes the world go around financially. And if they would convert, then the problem would be fixed. And the lack of tzedakah was, there were, how many different kinds of Gerim were there? Now, the real bottom line to that issue, and the premise is the Jews learn from the Gerim. So if there's no tzedakah, the Jews don't give tzedakah. We all know what comes to that, anti-Semitism and every other problem in the world. We say that a non-Jew who steals even a pruta, a penny in Talmudic terms, is put to death. I know we've all heard this and say, wow, that's a little bit severe, don't you think? So the idea is that the Jewish people are not makbid over a pruta, and the non-Jews are makbid on a pruta. And that's not necessarily a good thing for the Jews and a bad thing for the non-Jews. It's how societies are driven. And again, if we're going to have the Torah as a successful entity, we have to agree on how money is used and spent. For example, in Masa Mexia, you cannot be Hamish with the sandwich shop. Right? If they say it costs $3.50, it's not. That doesn't mean $3.45. Okay, I used to work at a coffee house, and one guy every day would come up short for his coffee and pay for the difference out of the tip jar. Now, I didn't particularly mind about the nickel, but it was pretty ridiculous that he's paying for his coffee for my tips. Okay, so you can say that I was being makbid on the money, and yeah, I'm gonna be. And you can say he was not being makbid. Makbid means particular. He's saying, come on. I'll get you back. I'll throw a quarter in at the end of the week. Not a big deal. Then what? If he doesn't throw the quarter at the end of the week, what am I going to say? Hey, where's my quarter? I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. It's just a philosophy of how the world works. So the Torah wants the non-Jew to not be makbid on that pruta. And what it really comes down to is it's the psychology between being, let's say, a goy, an idolater, or an akum, and the path taken to become ger, beyond the 7 laws, which again, Shem on the boat learned the art of tzedakah, and that was the world was founded on that principle. So the idea really becomes it's not so much of innate traits. It's more of a cultural system that when you get into Torah study and you begin to learn what is stealing, it's a cultural education. You no longer have the death penalty for that pruta. It's that when the education in the world goes out without Torah, just 7 laws, do your 7, go to heaven. The natural inclination is, stealing is one of the 7 laws. So what are people going to do when they hear stealing? They're going to become very makbid. But if you find out that there are 613 commandments available to you, and the entire Talmud's breadth of learning of what is stealing, then all of a sudden you don't have that death penalty in the same way. So that what King David is telling King Solomon Okay, don't tell the Gerim that they're better than the B'nai Noach. Those that are even struggling to keep the 7 laws. They just got out of the church. All right, they don't want to go to hell. They're trying to get into heaven. Now they got the 7 laws on them, and they're arguing over a pruta. Okay, and the reality is, all right, it's dangerous if you stay at 7 laws, which is why it's wise to become a ger, because of the strictness of, let's say, remaining ignorant. So he who wants to remain ignorant is going to have more harsh decree on him. And if that's his choice, that's his choice. So you have 2 guys arguing over a pruta. You need to settle that score. And you need to not only settle it, but you need to save a life here, because these guys are trying to kill one another over a pruta. So what comes down as a harsh decree, din, you need to become a real lover of kindness and settle this score. You need to save lives. The greatest honor to God is making gerim, but you need to do it in a kind of a covert way. The biggest example at the end of Bava Kama in that discussion, there's a nice piece written by Rabbi the Maram Shif, and describes this is the fundamental difference between Esav and Yaakov, and the sale of the Bechor, the firstborn. And he shows just the whole thing that Esav's tendency was to argue over the pruta, and Jacob, as the ger, was not arguing over the pruta. Pruta gets a penny. The idea is that once you move into a level of righteousness, tzedakah, that pruta's gone, the death penalty is gone, even the level of idolater and goy is gone. A ger is a totally different level. He is not a non-Jew. And he is not a Jew. He is a proper personality. He is a ger. The 4th vav to the shin, of the 4-pronged shin. Once he's into, let's say, universal thinking of monetary, then it's one Torah for everybody. He's routed through Sinai. Everything flows. And we know money is the mother of all evil. So if you're going to be against, let's say, the entire doctrine of Torah, you're going to really hold on to that pruta. Because if you don't want to give to Torah ways and thinking, and Hashem runs the universe, money will be where you hold on to the most. Therefore, the biggest struggle is to get the money moving in a ger system. We're trying to live in a utopia. Money was part of creation. The gold of the land was good. And this is just one of those things, rectifying evil. So the Torah doesn't beat around the bush. It says if you want to get on with this pruta, then the death penalty is in hand. Don't be a fool. Let go of it and start being a ger. But again, it's free will. He can hold on to it if he wants to, but it's a way of saying that he better be a prophet like Shem and Aver to know what is stealing on a prophetic level. Otherwise, it's a Torah learning he needs to tell him how to do it. So there you see again, what is an instance of an Evion and an Ani? The destitute of the land. They're arguing over pruta. And you have to treat it seriously, because it is serious. But the overall goal is to make gerim and get people to move along and really get away of that judgment, you're going to hell attitude, and really get a merciful realization of the Creator. Okay. This is why the Talmud says the poor will never cease from the land. Right? There's always going to be gerim, and there are always going to be far away gerim. There's always going to be gerim dealing with Sinai. Until we get way well beyond into Olam Haba, this is the reality. And the idea, they play a very important function. It makes you stay sharp for King Solomon, the Messiah, and with wisdom. You can't get lax. You can't just convert the world, and that's no good either. That's Erev Rav. When you just convert for the sake of anything. So the fact that they're holding on to whatever they're holding on to means for the Messiah program to work, you have to really, really uproot the most evil in the world. And it's not them. It's just the culture that they're born into. You have to create that Naaman program for everyone to get dunked in the river and experience the impurity coming out. This is not a contest or any kind of a comparison. Some people just are far and some people just aren't. But it's all one humanity that we're in it together. So that he says that if you have to give him the Evion, the really destitute, you have to give him sustenance. When we say the competition means you can't say, well, you're a 7 laws, go to heaven guy, tough luck, you need to just stop being that way. You can't just say to someone, just stop being that way. You have to really go to where they're holding, go down to them and find out what is the issue here. And until we get really a world peace through the Noahide laws, ultimately through Ger. And it says that if they're the Evion, he doesn't have any food to eat and he has no garment. So what do we give the destitute? Garment and food to eat. This is called mitzvah l'chiyuso. Right? We have a mitzvah to give him vitality. That is his salvation. His salvation is to give him the physical and spiritual needs. And we know this is predicated on the meat. Right? The improperly slaughtered animal carcass goes to him. Let's say there's a small hole in the windpipe of the animal. It's not fit for kosher slaughter, but it's a perfect grade of meat. That is given to the ger or sold to the nachri. This is the basis of the tzedakah given that is a pathway between the two peoples. And it might sound small, but there's two things that are huge that come out of this, and that is the universal language is food and meat. I mean, look around the world. Is McDonald's not a universal language? And the Korban Pesach in Jerusalem, or the Passover offering, all of the bad slaughterings, let's say, of millions and millions of animals, so that the Gerim partake in the festivities in Jerusalem. So everybody has their portion. And again, the improper slaughter doesn't affect any of the quality of the meat as per holiness or purity. There are laws of what is kosher and what is not kosher. Right? And the last thing a ger takes on in his walk with God is kosher meat. For that reason. Now we have the commandment of charity, of giving, of garment and bread, that can be taken literally. The same time, the mazon, the sustenance, is mazal. All sustenance comes from God. All sustenance is mazel. So what is the greatest gift you can give? Right, the mashal, the analogy goes, you can give a guy fish, but if you teach him how to fish, he'll never go hungry. That is the essence of the tzedakah in garment and bread and sustenance and mazel given to a ger. On any level, if you teach him how to fish, give him a wisdom that he can cultivate the universe with a craft of any wisdom, that he's self-sufficient, can make a living, can give to others, that even his Torah then has as a conduit to come to him from Mazal, just like the staves that are on the ark on the altar in the temple, right? These are the staves are there to show that everything comes from God to man. And to be able to go out into creation and witness the wisdom within all wisdoms. I'm studying wrestling on the internet these days. I used to be a high school wrestler, and I'm very interested in the sport. At 35 as a fan. And as a fan, I'm realizing how literally ignorant I was as a kid. As a kid, it was, bench press as much as you can, run as fast as you can, and that's going to make you a championship wrestler. Was I ever wrong? I mean, really wrong. As I watched the interviews of the NCAA champions, and you really listen to the interviews they give afterwards, and you say, wow, there's a wisdom to wrestling. It's not just, I'm tougher than you, and, I'll beat you up. No, that doesn't work. It's when they say it's 90% mental, they mean it. Now, I just started a wrestling club to get my son, involved in sports, and I'm wrestling with my partner for the first time, and don't ask how long. And literally, my body was accustomed to doing things that I couldn't even do when I was in shape. Because the wisdom is mochen. Mochen is intellect that runs through your veins. And it's like my body's cooperating to do things that when I was 16, if I would have known that, man, look out. So that's really what the Jewish-Ger relationship is about. Is through the Torah teaching, the Ger can go out there and really perform miraculous things in the world. I guarantee you, I'm a novice at this point, but the wisdom I've accumulated in wrestling, to share that with a kid trying, like kind of Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid, I guess you could say. But I hear the Torah coming from these guys. You can hear the Torah concepts, just like when somebody describes to me what their name would be in Hebrew. It sounds like you're just saying, blah, blah, blah in English. But if you listen, there's a cohesive vision being brought down. There's a proper Hebrew there. Well, so too with every wisdom. I was reading a financial report tonight about how China is supporting the dollar. And in all the business journals that I read online, they borrow terms from religion. The fiscal Armageddon and the Gog v'Magog of finance. All these things, the Jubilee year. And I was saying, man, if you really were to follow business and institute the knowledge of religion in a parallel universe, which it is, you probably would gain insight in the business world. That's why the 7 wisdoms all fit inside Torah. And the more that the Jew gives the Torah and the vitality of wisdom to the Ger as a partnership, the world becomes more developed and mastered, and then the Torah, those vessels come back into Torah, and there's an elevation in Torah. And this relationship becomes reciprocal. And this is the idea of the salvation given. And King David loves the salvation. Salvation, as I've said, and I know this pains a lot of people, and I'm going to do it anyways. I have to. The word is Yeshua. Now, I know what every former Christian and Messianic Jew in the world is thinking, but blame King David. All right, the word Yeshua means salvation, and it's all over the Tehillim. It's like King David's favorite thing, and it's the most used word in connection with the name of God, Elohim. It has nothing to do with Christianity whatsoever. And we say it in davening every day, Karen Yeshua, the horn of salvation. What salvation is for King David is you're going about your life, and all of a sudden you start feeling like you're drowning, much like this Sunday was for me. And you realize, oh man, here we go, safe footing. He says, the ground is dissolving, you're melting, people are speaking lashon hara about you, right? All the sensitivities come out, right? This guy doesn't like me, and that guy looked at me funny, and they're probably after me, and they know this and they know that. But God, I haven't sinned to you, and I'm pure to you, and I was always good to you, and They're coming after me. Right? This is every psalm, right? And David says, it feels like I'm drowning, and now I'm running to the desert, and oh, hey, I'm thirsty. I'm in the desert. So what am I thirsty for? God. Where's God? So this is what he does all the time. And what it is that God is really the only one in exile. And what happens is God asks everybody, hey, y'all want to go into exile with me? And the Jewish people say, nah, I'm comfortable in Brooklyn. Go away. And the Gerim say, well, I would, but I'm already in exile with you. So King David says, yeah, I'll go. God says, yeah? He says, yeah. He says, all right, let's go right now. Well, I wasn't thinking that soon. So every time David gets comfortable, God pulls him into exile with God, which is why David says, I am a ger. So now David's in exile. He's running for his life. People are speaking Lashon Hara, trying to kill him. People are dissolving, right? Their embarrassment will kill them. This and that. Next thing David knows, bam, a bunch of things happen. A miraculous revelation in nature. He got out of it. That was the Yeshua. It comes out of nowhere, and the Yeshua brings revelation of God and light in the world, and the people that are against me are ashamed, and those that are with me see the glory of God, and they can say things like Baruch Elokim, blessed is God, or Kavod Elokim, the honor of God, or even Ohev Elokim. You got to love the name Elokim. And as we said in Psalm 73, the reason why the name Elokim is so tough is we make it tough. We want that judgment. Why the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer. The more you ask that question, the more judgment you bring on yourself. Because the more sensitive you become. It's called working on yourself. And King David says to King Solomon, you need to bring the Yeshua to the Evion. Meaning that Ger Toshav, who he basically just wants everything and knows nothing, you got to be there for him. He is being drowned every day. Every day he's being drowned. And because he's such an Evian, he understands the vessels that you're working with. You know, his false religion has stolen what the concept salvation means. So if you teach real salvation, think about how much further he'll go when the drowning is over. He's going to want to get the true salvation and have the true knowledge of God. These concepts about justice, righteousness, kindness, there's a Gemara at the end of the tractate Makos. It says that the whole Torah can be summarized in the 3 commandments. Make mishpat, which is justice, right? Just try, you walk in a straight line and you're trying to be mishpat. Just, everything should be right. But that has kind of a judgment inclination. So the second line, this is Micah 6:8. It says, you should also love, what does God want for you? To do justice and love kindness. Ahavas chesed. The more you love kindness, then the more the judgment comes down, you'll sweeten it every time. Every time you'll sweeten it to kindness. And what that does is it draws God in your life. So now the third thing, walk modestly with God. God is with you, and your job is to walk modestly. Right? It's like the Iron Man, right? Imagine if every day you had the Iron Man suit. So you're not supposed to walk around saying, well, yeah, I'm the Iron Man. You're supposed to say, hi, my name is Plony Ben Plony. Not even mentioning the fact that God is your Iron Man suit and God is bringing you that Yeshua all the time. Right? Don't make everyone point to God because they won't even say it's God because you'll just say it's you. And that's like the worst. So therefore, you have to walk modestly when you're all the time sweetening reality. Because really, it's God. And that's the essence of Yisrael, to go straight to God. So this, again, to summarize it according to the Talmud, this is judgment, Gemilos Chosadim, kind deeds, which is the Gematria Torah, and walking modestly with God. And the Talmud continues, in the words of Isaiah, you can summarize it in two things: justice and righteousness. And Amos says, in fact, if you want to really please God or seek after God, fulfill the whole Torah. And how do you do that? The righteous lives in his faith. Habakkuk, the prophet. Okay. Now we have inside again. You have to make the Beis Din, the court of law, for the pruta, in expensive cases, and Jews and Gerim and Gerim and Jews, and Ger Toshavs and Ger Toshavs, and Ger Toshavs and Ger Tzedeks. The seventh Noahide law that makes it all tick. Statutes. King David is telling King Solomon, you must make statutes in Beis Din. And don't do it haphazardly, and don't take it lightly. Treat everything with reverence and fear of God. You must treat the courthouse proper, because that's the engine that generates the Torah that comes out of the Ger. That's the engine that makes Gerim. That makes everything run. Now, the destitute is more precious, let's say, than the ani, than the poor. Why? Because he just desires everything. The guy with the least desires the most. And thereby you have a mitzvah to give him the most ruchnius spirituality. You can give him the physicality. But what King David is telling King Solomon, that poor guy, you rip him off spiritually, he is really, you're going to kill him. The more you give to him, it's worth it. It's worth it. You're saving a life. You're saving the world. You're bringing out the true essence of the Torah. And you're fulfilling the final verse of this verse. You crush the oppressor. If you judge and you bring salvation to the Gerim, right? If you judge their cases, take everything up, every question they have, take it from judgment to compassion, and bring the salvation. Don't just say, okay, you're dead, or use your chayav misa on the pruta. You need to save lives every day, because these people will kill each other over a pruta to show how stark they are in the 7 laws. You need to ultimately be a master of making Gerim. If you do that, you will recognize the oppressor. As a king, that is your kingdom. If you take on the cause of the Ger and you succeed, you will be able to recognize the oppressor. You will recognize the oppressor of the Ger, of women, of your kingdom, of your house, of your child, every oppressor, and that is the essence of King David. He is dying to know, are you my friend? Are you an oppressor? And you'll say you can look for the mazel and the guy with this and the guy with that. You want to get a shortcut? You want to know who's your friend or who's he? It's black and white. He's either your friend or he's here to kill you. In one way, shape, or form. Take on the cause of the Ger, make Gerim, you will know every time who your oppressor is. That's all for this week. Next week, stay tuned for verse number 5. I'm just looking at it. I don't know if it'll be 5 and 6, but it'll be at least verse number 5. So stay tuned. Questions, comments, or feedback, I can be reached at Rabbi Katz at virtualyeshiva.com. Hope you're enjoying the series. Thank you.